Uh, Thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure having you on my LinkedIn Live. And we're on live now. So here we go. Parent Montessori consultant Jane Henriques. So first of all, I want to know about your journey. So talk me through about your journey first, so we get to know where you're coming from and how did you get to this stage of life, please.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, more than happy to share my journey and how I got to here. So I actually, my undergrad is in biology chemistry. I worked in cancer research for a couple of years after undergrad and felt that that wasn't quite my thing. And so it's interesting, I actually met my husband who was in finance, and he was like, why don't you do an MBA and transition into finance? It's exciting. There's a lot of things going on. And I did exactly that. I went back to school, did an MBA, and transitioned into finance. Actually, so finance and accounting. So I started out that career working with Ernst and Young as an auditor, and then moved from there, ended up working at a pension fund as a finance analyst. And my last role was as a finance analyst at a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. So I was, like a lot of moms, caught up in this struggle of trying to juggle motherhood and a career. And it was quite crazy. And my oldest son is on the spectrum. And so we had managed to find a program for him that seemed to work and arrange daycare for my younger son. So I was just a regular mom caught up in the grind, just trying to keep my head above water. But then I got a message from my son's school that just changed everything for me. It turned my whole world upside down. Basically, they said that they felt he was not capable of performing at the required level. So for his next year, which was first grade, they were going to put him in a classroom that did not teach academics. And, you know, it's that, have you ever been told something about your kid that you don't want to hear? You know, that angst, that crushing feeling. That's exactly what I felt. And I just couldn't take it. So of course I questioned this decision. And what they did was they did an IQ test on him, and they used the resulting low score to justify their actions. So I hit a brick wall. There was no going past that. And so I decided to find alternatives. And long story short, I ended up deciding to homeschool, and in the process had to figure out exactly how to homeschool. I tried to find another program, and we'd done a lot of school tours, but that wasn't working out. But thankfully, one of the program administrators felt compassion for me, and she actually started to direct me towards resources that would help me learn more about Montessori so that I could implement it with my child. And that's exactly how I got started in this. And after doing it and seeing how phenomenally well it was working with my kids, I'm now compelled, I just feel compelled to go back out there and help other moms on this journey.
Thank you very much for sharing this. It's emotional, but it's very. I'm sure you're not the only one who is going through this kind of stuff, but it's very hard when you feel like it's a big hit on your head, isn't it? This is
Yeah.
a lot of hopes with your kids, and all of a sudden this comes on, and you have so much built up, planned up, right, for future, and all of a sudden this hits you right on the head, and yeah, it's hard.
And actually, something I realized is that, well, that was the culminating event. But even before that, the way I was approaching it all, the way I was trying to juggle my career and kids really wasn't working for me, because at that time when I actually ended up stopping my career to be home with the kids, I'd actually reached a moment of burnout myself as well. I started having all kinds of chronic health problems. And so I realized that the way I had been doing it was not ideal. And it's interesting because reflecting on all this made me stumble on some truths. And that's the fact that juggling motherhood and a career or a business is quite an intense undertaking. And if you don't understand how to deliver efficiently and effectively on all the levels, it's just going to be a mess. And one of the things I found was that basically I was relying on pseudo solutions, like being self-sacrificial in order to solve that, like, be this self-sacrificial mom, and that was adequate on the mom front, and then try and push through at work and get things done. But I realized that's a recipe for failure. And but the interesting thing is that, like Dean Graziosi likes to say, everything is figure outable, right? And when I sat back and reflected, what I realized was that everything is a system. And if you get to understand the system well enough, you can actually manipulate the variables. And so with this motherhood thing, I realized the clue was actually figuring out the needs, my kids' needs. And if I was able to deliver them efficiently and effectively, then motherhood went smoothly in spite of what else was on my plate. Like, then I could actually effectively juggle motherhood and whatever else was on my plate. So yeah, that was a key piece of insight.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. And this is exactly what happened with Thomas Alva Edison, right?
Sorry, it's exactly what happened with what?
Thomas Edison.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the greatest
With the light bulb.
inventor of all time. Yeah,
Yeah,
his teachers said the same thing, right? He's not suitable for that school because he's similar. And then his mom said the opposite to him, right? So
right. And
exactly.
actually, it's a similar story with Albert Einstein too.
Is
The
it?
head principal said he would never amount to anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's because they think they are in a higher level, but it's the opposite sometimes. You think, oh, I'm the man, but sometimes it's the other way around because they don't
Right.
understand what they can understand, right? It's different
Exactly. You don't know
levels.
what you don't know. That's so true. And that's why for me, like, humility is such an important quality, because a lot of times you really don't know what you don't know.
Yes,
So you have to be open, because you
absolutely.
just,
Yeah,
you don't know where wisdom will come from.
absolutely. Yeah, this is wonderful. So tell me about your what you're offering and what you have for the mothers and how you do that. So yeah, tell me a little bit about your course.
Okay, so in my journey, I mentioned I got introduced to the Montessori method, and I started to implement it. It was actually easier implementing it with my kid on the spectrum than my toddler, because he was more available and willing to learn. So with my toddler, then I had to troubleshoot and figure out, how do I get him to come and sit at the table with me and learn? How do I get to a place where I can influence him, right? And the answer to this is actually a post on my Facebook page profile. It actually came from a conversation with my husband. And what I ended up realizing is that parenting, motherhood, is actually leadership. And throughout my career, having an MBA, you learn management, and of course, it's leadership. One of the leadership dynamics that really stood out to me as most effective is influence, not coercion, not bribing, not anything else. It's influence, right? And so that's one thing that I really had to solve in order to then get my kid to comply with my requests to come and learn. And then the other thing that I struggled with is the fact that the Montessori method is pretty intense. It's simple, but there's so much wisdom in it that if you don't fully understand what you're doing, you can very easily get lost. And for me, the insight with regards to what exactly was I doing with this whole Montessori thing, right? And because there's even a lot of confusion in the marketplace, a lot of stuff calls itself Montessori, when in actual fact, it's not really true to the Montessori method. You have a lot of toys that are labeled Montessori inspired, right? So it's easy to think you're doing Montessori, but in actual fact, you're not. And so what happened is that really observing my kid on the spectrum, I got insight into what exactly kids need, right? In those early childhood years to build a strong foundation, basically in almost all areas of life, so that they can unleash their potential and go on to perform, right? And so by sitting down and distilling these insights, I ended up with a 3-step formula that when I implemented consistently, these are my go-to principles when I'm having any kind of problems. I found that then I'm able to implement Montessori smoothly, but even just beyond that, be a phenomenal mom. Now my kid on the spectrum calls me Angel Mom, and he actually made me wings and a hello, right? And before, there were times when I didn't even understand him. I had no tools, no resources. Now I feel empowered. And so that 3-step process is, first of all, we work on your relationship, get you to a place where you effectively have influence as the leader, as the parent. And then the next step is understanding that critical thing that kids need in early childhood. And the third step is the resources, and these are the Montessori materials and how to actually implement the Montessori method to get your kids thriving. Yeah. I don't know whether you'd like me to go deeper into that, but I'm more than willing to elaborate on that. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can go a little bit deeper. So the influence and then the critical factors, and then the resources, right?
Right. So actually how I label these 3 steps is, first of all, relationship. The second of all is clarity, which involves mindset. And the last one is the tools and resources.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay, so relationship. I guess to best illustrate what I mean by relationship, I'm just going to make up a scenario, right? So imagine like you're going through a divorce. And so because of that, you're not showing up at work as you used to, right? It's obviously affecting your performance. And in scenario 1, the manager notices, but they come to you from a place of understanding. I've noticed this is wrong, so they state the fact, and then they tell you, if something's going on and you would like to talk about it, my door is open. I'm more than glad to help you troubleshoot. If it's not something you're comfortable telling me, that's okay too. If you would like us to explore as a team ways to ease what's on your plate to help you as you navigate this season. And then we can always get back as a team and restructure everything back to normal once everything is okay. I'm really looking to help you go through whatever it is so that we can get you back, So this manager acknowledges your humanity, that this is not you, and that it's something that's solvable, right? And because of that, you feel emotionally safe, you feel secure, at least in that everything else may be falling apart in your life. But this one person gives you security, and that becomes a platform, a place you can draw strength from as you navigate whatever you're navigating, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want you to imagine an alternative scenario where the manager, instead of coming from a place of humanity, instead is cold, harsh, and condescending, right? Your performance is unacceptable. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The company can't take this right now. And I'm really sorry, but if this continues, I'm going to have to give you a formal warning, right? What does that do? It adds to your anxiety, agitation, right? Now, literally everything is falling apart, right? Home, work, right? And so it's that much harder for you to even pull yourself together to even perform better. A lot of times, because of this, people probably end up leaving the job. You don't have the bandwidth to perform and manage the nightmare, right? And so this is a lot of what goes on, especially with toddler parenting. Toddlers are going through so much, right? They're developing at such a fast clip. All of a sudden, their senses are coming alive, and then they're getting so much sensory input, so much information. They don't know what to do with it. It's overwhelming, right? And so sometimes even just a little change can throw them off as they're trying so hard to navigate and understand and be okay. And then the little change shows up as misbehavior, but from the parent perspective, instead of trying to create a space that's emotionally safe and secure, parents come in with judgment, and it makes the whole situation that much worse. And so what happens is that either the kids learn to stuff their emotions, learn to just how to pull themselves up by the bootstrap, because the parent is the parent, they have no alternative, and they know they need the parent for survival. And then you start to instill brokenness in the child, or negative beliefs and things that impair the child's potential. It diminishes, right? So when I talk about relationship and influence, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So parenting demands that you master yourself so that you don't react, but you respond instead. And it's interesting, that was a very powerful thing I learned from my former employer at Ernst and Young. So we had this leadership development workshops, and one of them was called the R factor. And basically the concept of the R factor is that if you want to get ahead in life, you don't react to situations, you respond to them. Yeah. And what's the difference? Reactions is visceral, it's emotional. This happened, you're triggered, you react. What is a response? A response means you step back, you process, and then you respond. It's an appropriate reaction to something. It's not just a wild reaction, right? It's calm, it's thoughtful, it's processed. So that's where parents need to be in order, once you create this level of emotional safety, the kids trust you. Mommy has my back. So when she's asking me to do something, I know it's for my good. right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if they don't even like it, they might tell you, but mom, it's not fun. But the protest will not be lack of compliance. It will just be an opportunity for you to explain why. I know it's not fun, honey, but if we did this and this happens, and you can explain natural consequences, and you're going to have a better life and this and that, and they're going to believe you, right?
No, this is
So
yeah.
the next aha for me was the mindset. And this I struggled with. Like, some things just seemed trivial. And when you don't fully understand something, you don't implement it as effectively, right? And so working with my son, what I came to realize is the importance of involving their cognitive processes in the activities you do with them. Because this leads to something called sensory integration. And for me, what I've discovered, that's where the zone of genius is. That's where you start to empower the child to be powerful. And again, to drive this point home, I'm going to illustrate with an idea, right? So once moms have kids, a few months in, the pediatrician starts telling you, make sure to do tummy time with the kid. Put the kid on their tummy, give them an opportunity to start to stretch out their limbs and attempt movement, right? And they tell you the reason for this is that as they attempt movement, they're engaging their muscles. And so they're building gross motor skills and strengthening their muscles. And that's what eventually allows them to be able to walk, right? So put them on tummy time, exercise their muscles, they get to walk. So what if someone comes up then with a way of, let's say, making this easier and more effective, or not effective, because it is effective. Every kid walks, right? No kid, is labeled, oh, they couldn't walk, right? So what if someone says, oh, we can make this process go faster? So we'll devise a contraption that's a baby gym. The baby lies on their back, gets to do leg presses, baby leg presses, baby bicep curls, somehow some baby core strength thing, right? And then after a couple of months, the baby has built the muscles, then you stand them up and expect them to walk. Are they going to walk? No. Why? Because walking requires sensory integration. An actual program is built in the brain when the child is going through all these processes, when they're stretching out and doing that trial and error of trying to figure out how to walk. I remember one of my kids would lie down and stretch his arms and legs Superman style, and we'd laugh and say, oh, he wants to fly. He's not interested in this whole crawling, walking thing, right? But eventually he did have to crawl and then walk. And what happens is that as they're trying, they put one limb forward, and then they learn to put it forward with just the right amount of pressure. If I slam it on the ground, I feel pain. So that sensory information is information that's getting processed in the brain and creating this program in the brain, right? They learn, oh, if there was a Lego brick on the ground and I put my limb on it and apply pressure or attempt to move, ouch, it hurts. So I use my eyesight to observe my environment as I'm moving so that I can avoid obstacle. And once this program is created, it's so effective that when you as an adult are walking and maybe someone did not clean up after their dog had a long call, you may be talking to someone, but a lot of times you catch it and sidestep it without even stopping to process, look, and think, right? Because it's a program that's running in your brain in the background. That's what kids are looking for. That's what unleashes their potential and turns them into little geniuses. The opportunity to engage with material that helps them learn something about this world, right? So that's the key insight I got. And so now, coming to apply the Montessori method, why that key insight was so powerful was because now I understood what I was doing. The Montessori materials are very simplified. Each one of them stimulates maybe just one or two senses and stimulates the senses in a way that allows the brain to process the information or whatever the kid is learning from the material. You know, Einstein said, play is the highest form of research. And someone said, yeah, ask any toddler. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why the packaging the toy came in is more interesting than the actual toy. The actual toy doesn't provide much opportunity to explore. The most they can do is pretend play. And actually, in the earlier stages, they're not even ready so much for pretend play. They're learning to understand the world. To illustrate this in another way, imagine someone roasted an elephant and put it right in front of you and gave you knife and fork. How would that feel? Overwhelming, right? Like, where do you even start? And that's what a toddler feels. They're hearing all this, their brain hasn't learned to put in filters on what to focus on. It's like, whoa, right? And moms are aware of this. They will talk about, oh, my kid got overstimulated, and they get into this state where they can't even sleep. Their brain is just, and yet they can't control themselves. It's just, right? They're all over the place. But the Montessori method now helps with that. So the same way that cardboard box is a much simpler thing that allows them to use their senses to explore, they crumple it. It gets smaller. So then that crumpling it, the sensory experience, the tactile senses of what it feels like as they're putting pressure and what the impact of that pressure is in their hands. This is all information that's being processed. And so one mistake I see a lot of moms do is they do understand the need for sensory stimulation. And so they will create all these elaborate sensory bins to stimulate their kids. But these sensory bins don't provide any cognitive stimulation. So, and a lot of times you go on these Facebook groups and moms are complaining, I spend so much time and effort making this elaborate sensory bin with different colors and textures, and the kid just came and just messed it all up and went away in 2 seconds, right? And they feel defeated. And that's because the kid came and, you know, did just felt the textures, and then there was nothing more to it, nothing more to pick up, and they went on their way. Correspondingly, if the mom had put like lentils and beans in a bin and asked the kids to sort them out, that actually triggers processing. And so you have sensory integration, because what are they learning? When I get an overwhelming amount of information, I can start to separate out like from unlike, a different, and then it's easier to understand. You know, these ones are different because they're smaller, and these ones are bigger, right? It starts to give them a way to eat the elephant.
Right.
Bite after bite, right? And so this is how I help moms. My program walks them through each of these 3 steps to mastery, so that then they're able to go out and just unleash their kids' potential and make sure that their kids don't have emotional baggage from early childhood parenting friction with parents.
Right. So this is wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. We went a lot deeper, but that's okay. So coming back to this, how do you, what type of courses do you have? Do you do group coaching, or do you do one-to-ones, or do you do, how do you do? Do you have a course built already?
I don't have a course. I do a hybrid model that's group and also one-to-one sessions for because sometimes the questions that a parent has are more personal. So I have a hybrid model where we have group training sessions and
Yeah.
then breakouts with one-on-one. That's one-on-one. Mhm.
Perfect.
And
So,
my program is 12 weeks. Mhm.
for the program, could you drop any links that you have on the chat for me, please? So maybe if you have a landing page, drop the landing page. If you have a website, drop the website. Or you can drop the profiles in here, your Facebook profile and your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I'll drop my Facebook profile. That's my main. Yes, I'm keeping it simple. Okay, give me 1 minute here. Mm. Mm. Um, Come on. Okay, here we are. Chat. Right. So there we go. On my page, you can get access to me, direct message me, let's chat.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And
Mhm.
thank you for joining, Jane. So let's, I'm
Sure.
going to